Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Anarchy! I don't even know what this means, but I love it!
Sergeant Hugo Stiglitz. Heard of him? Everybody jumped on.
Hey, welcome back to Meanwhile at the Studio. I'm your host today, Nate. All right, we are back with another episode of the podcast, and today our guest is attorney Davey J. from Meehle and J. I can say it right. Welcome to the podcast, Davey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So, for anyone that doesn't know, you specialize in intellectual property and entertainment law. That's correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So, our podcast is all about talking about, independent filmmaking. And so I thought it'd be a great idea to bring you on and kind of talk about how, the laws affect independent filmmakers in ways they might not even know. But before we get into that, why don't you touch on your background and kind of, your story through becoming an attorney?
Oh, that's a long one. All right. So
Cool.
condensed story, a lot of years of school there. I went to law school without realizing that like entertainment law was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
And then when I found out that, it was possible to not only just, be an attorney, but have involvement in the world of entertainment, I was like automatically hooked. I'm sold. I'm like, I don't want to do anything else. Because personally, like I was, growing up and through my teenage years, I was a dancer. I was in, ballet 6 days a week and whatever. And I was named after my uncle who was an art restorationist.
Oh, cool.
So we kind of had like this, this history of being involved in like the arts. And so I thought, what an amazing way to still continue participating in the industry, even though I'm not the one on stage or I'm not the one in front of a camera generally.
Right.
I can still be part of this project and still help people make these things become a reality. So I was like, this is what I mean to do. Like, this is
So as
for
soon as
me.
you heard about entertainment law as an option, like that's the one for me.
Yeah, I took my first course in intellectual property, which was copyright law. And, that's all about like protecting the arts. And I was just like, this is awesome. This is cool. And I love the way that law works too, because it's all shades of gray.
Right.
So, that really kind of fit with me really well too. So
Did you have kind of like an anti-authority, like always questioning growing up and, really enjoy, saying like, nah, I disagree with this and here's all the reasons why?
my parents would say so.
Yeah.
I always thought I was very reasonable.
Always is the case with people that are arguing. They're like, I'm being reasonable. You're the one that's crazy.
That's one of our tricks. Yeah.
Yep. I'm familiar. I am that person.
Yeah.
So where'd you go to college?
Undergraduate, I went to University of Central Florida. Law school, I went to Barry University School of Law, and I also attended University College London in England. Yes.
Mind the tram.
That's right.
Mind the gap, as they say.
Mind the gap.
Yeah. I went over the pond for the first time last year with Juan to go see Delfino, who was a student of yours, I believe.
He was.
Shout out to Delfino. But it was awesome. It was very it wasn't as weird of a shift as I thought it would have been from, hearing about, everything's different over there. I'm like, not really.
Yeah. It's just slightly off.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's very normal and then it's not.
Right.
Like, the first time somebody tells you something's on the second floor.
Exactly. And you're like, hey, we don't have a dollar store, but we do have Pound Town. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That's not.
It's like, not what you think. Not what you think it is.
It's a dollar store. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw those signs. I'm like, what is going on? Oh, okay. Got it. So,
well, they're all a little bit more liberal minded over there.
Yeah, a lot cooler, a lot chiller over there. Yes. Their TV, their standards and practices for TV is a lot different than ours.
Very much so. And
it's interesting because their radio is much more stringent than ours for some reason.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Tell me.
It's bizarre. And like I said, everything's just a little bit off in ways you wouldn't expect, but it's cool.
Nice. So you went to college, you did the whole thing. And so what was your first job like outside of you graduated, and what was your first kind of like official, I'm a lawyer now job?
I worked for a firm called Trivedi and Associates, which was in downtown Orlando. And I was really, really fortunate in a lot of ways because I knew the name partner, Eric Trivedi. And he was basically like, you know what? Come on, if you want to do entertainment law, you go right ahead. Like, you do your thing. And I was just like, really? I can? And he's like, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, all right. Like, which was amazingly lucky. And I'm so fortunate because there's not generally a bunch of law firms going, hey, can we get like a freshly minted attorney who does entertainment law, please? Like, that's
That's not usually the way it goes. Is there like an internship, or what's like the normal path for a lawyer after graduation?
Yeah, a lot of times people, seek internships when they're in law school. And I have to, I would have to advise people to do that. I didn't because I instead went to London.
Right.
Which to me was like, gee, would I want to work this semester or would I want to? No,
Yeah, no,
I'm
I'll go to
gonna
London. Thank you.
I'll go to London. Yeah. But that's not the best decision for lining up a job after graduation.
Sure.
But I wouldn't change it for anything. But yeah, so most people get an internship. I didn't do that. And entertainment law is a tough field to get into because a lot of people are like, oh, that'd be really cool to do.
Right.
But it's not a huge field,
Right. There's the entertainment industry is big in scope, but small in like the people that actually do the jobs and the work. So I imagine the same, it kind of trickles down the line for entertainment law as well.
Right. And most people in their life will probably need an attorney for anything but entertainment law.
Sure.
So it's not, a huge segment of the legal market, as it were.
What would you say the biggest difference for you in like the entertainment law versus like the regular, your day-to-day divorce attorney type of guy or gal?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't do that. Like number one for me, like I love really working for people on like this basis of setting them up for success and advising them like, hey, this is how this should be done. And here's how we protect you. And like it's a very forward looking, let's protect you and get you in a position where you can just really soar.
Right.
Versus a lot of attorneys are coming in and they're doing damage control. Not to say that that's not a part of my job. It is. But that's the majority of their practice. Like somebody who does family law, they're coming in and frequently it's, a dumpster fire. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like,
by the time they get to you, the lawyer for, a family law, it's already shit's hit the fan.
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing with criminal law and the same thing with personal injury. And it's, like, I don't want to say this in a way that offends anybody that does that. However, it's almost, but that being said, it's almost like they're dealing in misery. You know what I mean? Like the misery brokers, sort of like, how do we minimize your harm? How do we make you better? But that's what it is. It's like it's misery that comes in and that's what they have to work with.
Sure.
Whereas my clients that come in, what I have, the clay they put in my hands is, hopes and dreams and plans and inspiration.
Right. But I would say like maybe in some ways that's a lot more pressure because you've got like their whole future in front of, in your hands. And if you mess that up for them, it could down the line really screw them up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things where, and it's cool that you see that because that's the two riskiest areas of law, at least according to the people who offer insurance for attorneys, are securities law, which is, stuff that's traded on the stock market and investors.
Super volatile. Yeah.
Yeah. And intellectual property.
Right. And is that because there's so much gray area within the intellectual law? Like it's all open to yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a big part of it. The other part of it is it has a really long tail, which means like copyrights will last for the lifetime of an author plus an additional 70 years. Okay. You screw that up for somebody, that's their whole life worth of, revenue and their kids and grandkids.
Right.
Or a trademark is, has value in the brand as long as the brand is in use. So that's potentially hundreds of years of, you know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot of value in those assets potentially for a long time.
Sure. I think they just did something with Anne Frank's book, putting her father as an author as well, so it preserved the intellectual property. I read something cursory about that on Reddit like 5 days ago.
Oh, cool. I haven't heard about that, but yeah, that would be under the laws, I think under the laws of the Netherlands, wouldn't it? Was that initially?
I'm like mildly informed. I'm not uninformed, but I'm enough to be dangerous and be like, oh, in a 5-minute conversation, you would think I would know what I'm talking about. But we get into the weeds, I'm like, I don't know, man. So that's why I was asking you.
Why I start going, ooh, that's really interesting. Like, let's look into that and see if that's like under the Netherlands copyright law, or if it was an English translation and somehow snuck into the UK's copyright or America.
Right. So you go and research that, and then next time you come on, we'll have you answer the question. So just stay tuned, everyone.
Deal.
Yeah, cool. So going back to like the filmmakers, how would you say, like, just lay it out, the relationship between you being an entertainment IP attorney and the relationship it has with independent filmmakers and just the filmmakers in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of what I do is my best case scenario is somebody comes into me right at the jump and they're like, look, I've got a project in mind. This is what I would like to do. Or I would like to start a studio, or I would like to, you know what I mean? Like, want to start a production company. Where do we go from here?
Right.
And then, I can really work with them on forming their entity properly, which a lot of filmmakers, when, their first time out the gate making their own film, a lot of them don't even think to form like an LLC or a corporation.
Sure.
Which leaves them, wholly exposed personally to all the liability on a film set. And with film, there is so much liability. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Like,
you know who never forgets to get an LLC is roofers and tree trimmers, because they're one company one week, and then a guy gets hurt and they burn the LLC, and then they're Jim's, now they're Jay's Tree Service.
That's the truth.
Yep.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah, that must be like the first day of like tree trimming school. Is like
how to apply for LLC. Sunbiz.org. Go to it.
Exactly. So yeah. So then, like, if I get in with somebody at the beginning, we can build that foundation for them, and that's really super important, because I always explain to people that starting a business, whether it's film or anything else, it's very much like the Three Little Pigs, right? You want to be in the house of brick. Because when the big bad wolf comes, and he's always coming,
sure,
that's the house you want to be in. So the way we do that is, properly form your entity and protect you from liability, and then making sure you have all of the right contracts in place and the right licenses and the right insurance policies and all of that stuff, so that you are fully protected. And your little pig's house of brick has now turned into a full castle with a moat around it.
Gotta
and a
have
dragon
a moat.
hanging out there.
Gotta have a moat. Yeah.
Why would you not have a moat?
Yeah, Bert Kreischer. I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian Bert Kreischer, but he wants to do a show called like Pimp My Moat or something like that, where he goes and finds people at Home Depot and like says, "Hey, can we make a moat in front of your house?" and then do it. So I think my wife would kill me if I did that, but
I am for that 100%. I need to have a talk with your wife then. Because
yes, please.
You need Yep.
Yeah, her number's 81. No, but yeah. So sorry to get us off track. Joe, what were we talking about?
Moats and dragons.
Moats and dragons.
Entertainment.
No, entertainment. Thank you. So, sorry. This is the fun of podcasting. You could
do it live.
We'll do it live. No. So we're talking about protecting yourself as you're starting a company in the film and entertainment industry. And go.
Yeah. Go. Okay. So other things. So, like I was mentioning, like the contracts and the licenses, that's where I see a lot of people screw up. And sometimes I have to try and go back and fix it. If they don't come to me right from the beginning, is that they're like, either they didn't have contracts with people, which is, horrible and terrifying to me. Or they did, but they're not good, because either they wrote them themselves or they pulled it off the internet. And the problem with that, fundamentally, like if you find something online and you're like, oh, this looks good. This looks like appropriate for what I need. It sounds right. And I'm a relatively intelligent individual. I can read. That's good. What more do I need? The problem is that, most people in the industry aren't trained to see what's missing from that document.
Right.
And that's where you get in trouble. Yeah. That's where your loopholes are. That's where you don't realize it's not there until you need it. Just like anything else in life, you starts to rain. You're like, where's my umbrella?
Sure.
You know,
I thought
same
this
sort of
jacket would be enough, but it's raining harder than I thought now, and I need an umbrella.
Yep, exactly. So that's, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, I see a lot of people go through because I understand, like, a lot of people when they're starting their first project or shooting their first film, they're like super ultra low budget or no budget,
Right.
or they crowdsource it, you know, and that sort of thing. And I totally get it. And I absolutely understand, you know, like, legal is not cheap. I get that.
Right.
But at the same time, it's so much more expensive to try and fix it later.
I'm sure.
And sometimes it's not even possible to fix it later because you have to go back and like rewrite these contracts and then go back to these people and go, hey, do you mind signing a contract now that the project's over?
Sure.
And they're like, why?
What's changed?
What's yeah. And there's no incentive for them to sign because the project's done and they've been paid, and you know what I mean?
Right.
So that can impact the ability to even do anything with your film, because if you don't have all the rights cleared, you know, no distributor is going to want to pick that up.
Right. You have one
because
holdout
that's
saying
liability. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what like you said, there's people that are making films on zero budget. It's actually costing them money. They may not be able to retain a lawyer to help them out. What's some tips that you can tell people that are like that to kind of like help them through and get to the next step where they actually, how do they save their own ass until they can afford to hire you?
Well, first and foremost, they got to educate themselves as much as possible. And I know that sounds like, you know, driving a rusty railroad spike through your head when I'm like, oh, you got to know the, you know, you got to understand the law going in. You know, like most people are like, no, I'd rather do calculus. But there's, you know, very easy to read consumable resources out there that are written for filmmakers, or, you know, the information is palatable in that way. So you don't have to pick up a law book. You don't have to sit there and read the statutes. But certainly there's content out there to help educate you on, you know, what you need to be looking out for, be careful of, what you can and can't do. Because those are some of the fundamental things people don't realize is like, oh, wait, I can't just use that song. I can't just include this person. I can't just film here. You know, like, well, no, man, you need a permit. Like, you need permission too.
Who said you could do this? Right.
Yeah. And so I think that's really step number one, is to arm yourself with that knowledge and education moving in. So, you know, as far as places to get it, like, there's a great book called The Pocket Lawyer for Filmmakers. Really straightforward, really easy to read. You don't even have to, you know, go cover to cover. You can, you know, go to certain sections, whatever pertains to what you're doing. We've got at the firm, we've got a good amount of resources on both our website and on our socials, especially Facebook. We've got, you know, videos talking about like copyright or trademark or licensing or contracts or film law and all that stuff. So, and they're pretty conversational, you know, much like this is. It's not like me standing there with this very dry lecture and going, you know, pursuant to 17 USC 101.5C.
I'm already tired. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, and speaking of lectures, you were you worked or was a professor at Full Sail for a number of years. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. I taught there for 12 years.
Wow,
and then after
that's a good run.
And Full Sail time even too, because like everything's different there time wise.
Sure.
Yeah, I was there for 12 years. I taught in the recording arts program, film master's degree, show production, digital arts and design, music business, entertainment business. Basically, you know, anybody that they could sit in front of me in any of the creative arts, I would be like, come here, we're going to talk.
Yes. You need to know this. And I'm sure your lectures were not a snore fest, because I would, going by the, what did you call those? Like those, they weren't lectures, but they were more like a hang at the bar where you told us about law and we drank a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Before, I know that seems like 100 years ago before a global pandemic, but that was fun.
Yeah. We do that every summer actually, is have like, yeah, exactly. You know, certain sessions, you know, at the local bar, and we talk about either, you know, business law or trademarks or contracts or whatever, film law. And, you know, I find that lectures go over much better if there's a bar nearby.
Agreed.
You know, you can grab a drink and, you know, like, I'm a better speaker if you're drinking. The content's more fun.
Subsequently, I'm a worse listener as I start to drink. there's a point. There's a point, you know, with, especially in stand-up as well, where you're hitting the 5 drinks and then they start to get a little bit more. They have feedback for you. You want to keep them below feedback levels.
It's like playing pool for me. Like there's a zone,
Yes.
you know, like here you go too far and you're done. But you know, there's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's so those are fun. And we actually this past summer, because we couldn't do it in person. Derp, derp, I'll just throw out any word now. Because we couldn't do it in person, we did it through like Facebook Live.
Oh, perfect.
So those are all now like videos that are archived on our Facebook page. So hopefully this summer, knock on wood, we'll be able to do it in person again. But yeah, I love teaching. I love getting up in front of people and talking and, you know, educating people. And to me, it's really important to share the knowledge more than anything else.
Sure.
Because I do realize that a lot of people can't afford, you know, to retain an attorney, you know, for their project. So I'm like, hey, at the very least, I could share this information with you.
Right.
And at least will help you that much and get you started.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people would say, you know, there's always that like, oh, I'm going to copyright it myself. I'll put it in a self-addressed stamped envelope and I'll, you know, throw it in the mail. And now this is my idea. Doesn't work.
That gets you mailed.
Yeah.
So if you like some mail, go ahead and mail things to yourself. Otherwise, it's really worthless.
That's good to know. That's good to know because my my Uncle Randy would probably disagree with you there, but no. So getting away from, you know, okay, now we've taken care of business. Let's talk about some fun stuff.
Okay.
You know, you're an attorney. I love, you know, law movies, law related movies. My favorite all time, My Cousin Vinny.
Yes.
If you ask me,
that's what I'm talking about.
that's the only law movie. That's the only one.
It's the only one that gets it right.
Yes.
Like.
Oh, so that's what I wanted to ask you about. So what was like, as from your perspective being a lawyer, like how does that jive with you, that movie?
Really, it actually goes over really well. And that's my problem with most law movies is that the majority of them get it so wrong that to me, it destroys the whole illusion. Like there is no more suspension of disbelief because I'm like, that would never happen that way.
Right.
And that's, you know, your entire storyline is dependent upon that. And it would just it can't go down like that.
So it just ruins
it drives me nuts.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but My Cousin Vinny actually gets it right. And I've used lines from that movie to explain stuff to people before, you know, like it's called discovery, you moron. Like, no, you really do have to share this stuff beforehand.
Right.
So
that's excellent.
It's fantastic. Yeah. And even the part where they've got her on the stand and, you know, they're bringing her up as an expert witness and what you have to do when you have an expert is, you know, demonstrate that this person actually is an expert.
Right.
And so we either so through their degrees or their professional history or, you know, things like that. So when they're asking her those preliminary questions, like that's what is they were proving her up to make sure that she met the threshold to be an expert so that she could testify, which was awesome. So
that's awesome. What's a movie that gets it though? Like, what's the most egregious representation of like a courtroom for you in a movie?
Oof. There's a lot of them. But I will say like one of the movies that like I had to get up and walk out, not that it was a great movie otherwise, but The Exorcism of Emily Rose. It's probably like 15 years old or more. And my son was watching it and I was just like, I can't with this movie because like the lawyer, and this happens in a lot of movies, but that one really stuck with me. The lawyer is like talking to the client the night before trial to find out what happened. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like in reality, we've had this file for years.
Right.
We've been going through evidence and discovery and all, like, the night before trial. So tell me what happened. Like,
it's like, why didn't you ask me this weeks ago when I hired you?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I imagine
like,
the timeline, right, is always the thing that would be pushed. Is like everything in film and television, everything's like condensed to fit the the narrative and the storyline. But in life, shit drags out for years and years and years.
Years of stuff, and a lot of it's, and I get it. I understand that for the purposes of film, you can't do that. For the purposes of the story, you can do that, and I understand. Like a lot of what attorneys do, and myself included, is painfully dull to watch.
Right. Yeah, contract work to me, reading a contract, I can't think of something I'd rather do less. Maybe, like you said, calculus, but right there.
Yeah. I know it's pretty terrible to look at. I get it. So, I do try to grant some quarter as far as that goes, but other times they'll just like, oh, surprise witness. No,
There's no surprise
oh,
witnesses.
or the evidence thing where they're like, haha, what about this in court? Like that doesn't happen. That can't happen. It will never happen. All that stuff has to be, shared before the trial starts. You don't get the surprise evidence thing coming in. So
Nice. What about Liar Liar? That was one that I enjoyed, but I imagine it might be a nightmare from a attorney's perspective.
It's been a long time since I've seen that, so I don't remember all of the.
So Jim Carrey was a liar. He lied to his son all the time, and then his son was like, at his birthday, made a wish, blew out the candle. I was like, I wish my dad wasn't a fucking liar. And then he's not a liar anymore, and he can't help but tell the truth. And then shenanigans ensue inside the court. I think there was there was a custody battle as well because he was getting a divorce from the mom. And so that's where the courtroom drama started.
See, gosh, I'm wondering, like, I know of that movie. I wonder if I ever actually saw the whole thing. But one of the things that a lot of attorneys are good at and politicians are even better at is not answering the question.
Yep.
Not being able to lie might not really be that much of an impediment.
Right.
Because
you can lie without lying.
Right. Like we answer the question we wish was asked instead of the question that was actually asked.
Right. Oh, thank you for asking that question. Now I'm going to give you an answer unrelated.
Now I'm going to tell you about what I want to talk about. I'm like,
nope.
I mean, and that drives me nuts when I hear politicians do that. But I see that they're trained to do that.
Sure. Yeah. Politicians are going to politic. You can't help that out. Have you ever consulted for any any films like where they say, hey, we need what is this right? Are we doing the right thing?
Yeah, I've certainly had clients, pop in and say, and sometimes their insurance carrier requires it and says like, hey, we need an attorney to look at this and tell us that this looks good.
Gotcha.
Kind of a thing. So every once in a while, I get paid to watch content.
That's awesome. That's a good day in the office, I bet.
It really is. It is not the worst of the things that I do, let me tell you.
What is the worst?
When I have to deal with really terrible opposing counsel or somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. That's not a client, but like another attorney, because there are certain attorneys that will like dabble in entertainment law.
Gotcha.
And they don't understand it. And like the law is like medicine in a lot of ways. Like you don't go to a dermatologist because you're having a heart problem.
Of course.
Like that you would not get the results you want out of that relationship.
Yeah, that's not going to be a good. It was like, here's some ointment, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you want me to pop that? No.
Dr. Pimple Popper? What?
Exactly. So the law is the same way. And so like, I would never presume to practice like criminal law or, like insurance defense or tax laws. Like I'm a danger to myself and others when it comes to criminal law because I took, a course in law school. I am not qualified to do that. It's so outside of my, the scope of my experience and what I know that, it wouldn't be good. But yet, sometimes attorneys will dabble in this stuff and it just makes things a royal mess. And I have to sit there and say, look, I'm not being difficult and I'm not being obstructionist because I'm the other attorney, but man, you don't know what you're doing. like this is bad.
I'm sure there's a lot of like lead up to like padding that to you can say like, hey, you are wrong and don't know what you're doing, but I have to give you all of this, leeway before I can actually say that.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong. Like if it's of a benefit to my client, I'm not going to tell them that they're wrong. I'm not, like but there are times when, somebody else not really, and just like in anything else, when somebody really doesn't know what they're doing, sometimes it gets bungled and you're like, look, we can't, that's not right.
It's bad for both sides, but if it's good for me, bad for you, then maybe I don't send that email to you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice. Well, I've had a great time hanging out with you on this Zoom call. We don't do a lot of the Zoom, but this was a success. So hopefully we can have you in person next time, possibly. And
for sure.
Is there anything you want to tell the people of the podcast world where to find you if they want to retain you as their attorney? How can they reach out?
Absolutely. So you can always go to our firm's website. So the firm is Meehle & J, and the website is meehle.com, which is meehle.com. Autocorrect will try to tell you that you're trying to say needle. You're not.
Oh, I guess it would. Yeah.
Yeah, it always does. And I'm just like, ducking autocorrect. But yeah. And then our socials, we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the places.
Parler?
It's all Meehle & J. No, not that one. So we're there. I just got my invite to Clubhouse though. So that one's like one of my personals. But that's at davey.esq on Clubhouse. But yeah, so that's generally how you find us or reach us, or just Google Davey J. I think I'm one of the only ones. I think there's like a DJ in England that's also a Davey J, but
DJ Davey J.
Yeah, DJ.
Yep, like it. Love it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Hello, thanks for watching. Check out our latest video right here. Make sure to hit the subscribe button right here for more podcasts like this.